Hi, I'm Rose Jordan with Visit Mineral Wells, and I'm here at the National Vietnam War Museum with Jim Messinger. Mineral Wells is rich with military history dating all the way back to 1916. But one of the things we're most known for, nearly every helicopter pilot that flew in Vietnam was trained right here. In fact, less than a mile down the road at Fort Walters. So it makes sense for the National Vietnam War Museum to be located here. So, Jim, we'd love for you to tell us about the museum and then maybe show us around some of the gardens. You up for it?
You bet.
All right, let's go. So, Jim, tell us how this museum got started in the first place.
Well, it's all interesting, of course. A group of Army helicopter pilots got together and formed a helicopter pilots chapter of the national organization because they wanted to do more than what the national organization was doing. They wanted to really do something. So they formed a chapter and they decided that they would do a museum. And they formed a committee and sent them out to get the museum going, and that's when I heard about it. I didn't care about belonging to the Pilots Club. When I heard they were doing a museum, I ran as fast as I could to get in touch with them and be part of the story.
Because you're one of the helicopter pilots that was trained here.
Yes.
Right, and you trained also. You were a trainer here.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to say it. Yeah, I did both. I learned to fly helicopters, went to Vietnam, spent 13 wonderful months doing that. Came back here to be an instructor, and then had to get back to Vietnam as fast as I could because I had so much fun over there. I wanted to do it again.
All right. So tell us about the museum. What are the plans behind the museum, kind of the mission and the status of it?
Well, first of all, we had all been to Vietnam, and Vietnam War was special because everybody came over one at a time, so we were scattered all over the map. And as a result of that, the dozen or 14 of us that started it, we all came from different areas, so we had pretty much a big map of the whole war. We talked about what everybody did and realized that we could pretty much cover the whole thing without any problem. And we knew what had to be done. The biggest problem we had was we didn't have any money, we didn't know how to build a museum, and we didn't have any big names that you would recognize. If I read off the list of names, you say, who are those guys? But we were determined. We kept going one step at a time. We built, we actually incorporated in 1997. We opened our first garden in 2007. And then we did something else every year. We did a little thing and another little thing and another little thing, and eventually, just a few years ago, we started building a 20,000 square foot facility to really expand into what the National Vietnam War Museum should look like.
So tell us about that building, because I know it's in progress and you're getting close and the grand opening is coming up soon. So tell us kind of what's in the building, what the status is, and then go from there. Okay.
Yeah, the grand opening is June 25th. I can't remember the start time exactly, but we'll have plenty of time to figure that one out. There's actually 4 major components of the museum, and we call them dioramas. The first area is devoted to the Vietnamese people and culture. The second one is a helicopter dropping some troops off out in the field. And number 3 is the Oval Office that belonged to LBJ. And number 4 is the evacuation from Saigon. Those are the major exhibits. And then we have cases of stuff that, all kinds of different artifacts, guns and knives and people and things, POWs and everything about Vietnam.
And so that one, it's close to being finished, the different scenes and things.
Yeah, the dioramas are almost finished. You know, it's terrible words to use of almost. It's almost there. Yeah, we have the artist concepts at each site, so when we take an occasional tour through there, people can see this is what it's going to be, and now it's far enough along that you can actually see that it's going to be something.
Okay. So once that's ready, we definitely want to come back and do a tour of that.
Absolutely.
But right now the gardens are ready. So we'd love for you to just kind of take us around and tell us a little bit about the gardens. Okay. I know you've got, 6 different gardens? And part of that includes a couple of labyrinths that are actually on the worldwide labyrinth locator website, because I found it.
That's great.
So, yeah, if you would just take us and talk to us a little bit about the gardens themselves.
Okay.
So if you come out to the National Vietnam War Museum, they actually have 6 different gardens, and each one has its own focus, but they have a brochure that you can pick up that tells you all about each one. And Jim's actually going to take us and go see the gardens for ourselves.
Okay. Well, first thing you want to see here is the sign on the left, which is the Parker County Master Gardeners Project sign. And the Parker County Master Gardeners have been doing and maintaining our gardens ever since we started. This is the first one. They come out 2 Mondays a month and work all day, pulling weeds, planting things, and hopefully having a good time.
Well, the rain we've had recently is probably keeping them busy. So what are the bricks? These are all donors?
Yeah, years ago I started a program for $100 you could have a brick in the garden, and we have over the 15 to 20 years we've been doing this, we've collected about 2,000 bricks. And I keep putting them in the meditation garden until it fills up, and then I'll have to find another place. But people can get 3 lines of text, 15 characters each, and have the brick be put in the garden. I've also expanded the Marines like being in the Semper Fi garden better, so I put them over there. And we do have a Navy garden, so if the Navy people want to use that one, we'll do that too.
And so this is the meditation garden. This is the one that has the labyrinths and the gazebo. Mm-hmm. Okay. And were the labyrinths a part of the original plan?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the board members insisted that I design in a labyrinth trail.
So Jim, do you know the difference between a labyrinth and a maze?
I don't. I have read up on it somewhat, but...
So I did a little study just to be ready, and a labyrinth, the purpose of a labyrinth is to calm and peace and tranquility, and a maze is full of wrong turns and dead ends, and so people who love labyrinths do not like it when you call a labyrinth a maze, because a labyrinth is intended to bring peace.
Yes.
And a maze, not so much. So, and then I know one of the things about a labyrinth is that's a little bit different from a maze is that a labyrinth has one way in and one way out. There are no wrong turns. In a maze, you could turn a million different directions and never get where you're going.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and then one other thing to note is along the back of this property actually is the Lake Mineral Wells State Trailway that runs from downtown Mineral Wells all the way over into Weatherford. And so you guys here actually have a walkway out to the trail?
One of the things that we did, and I look back now and realize that we really were forward thinkers, which doesn't seem like we would be, but we were. When we found the land, and by the way, we had to buy it, but when we found the land and bought it, we ran down to the state park and asked them if they would give us an entrance to the trail.
Oh.
And it's a win-win. They get people on the trail, and we get people in the museum. So.
Yeah. Well, and if you get on the trail and go that way, there's also a little walkway off of the trail that'll take you to Clark Gardens.
Clark Gardens, and the state park has a couple of different entrances. Well, this is our second garden that was built. Master Gardeners again doing that. They've got their sign over there as usual. This is the Camp Holloway wall. It was built in Pleiku in 1965 and dedicated by General Westmoreland. And it was a list of the people from that particular unit or that particular place that were killed in Vietnam. The touching part of the story here is that when the war ended, the North Vietnamese bulldozed this because you can't have a memorial from another country in their property. And the soldiers didn't get it saved. They thought they had shipped it home, but they never could find it again. So they came to us and said, could you give us a piece of land? And we did, and it's quite a look. So we do get some confused people who think this is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, and of course it doesn't look anything like that, but there's a lot to learn about the Vietnam era.
Yeah.
The first thing we did after we built the wall was put up this computer kiosk. In Washington, D.C., they had this great big thick book, 8.5 by 11, about that thick with all the names alphabetized, and you had to flip through the book to find the name. We put up a computer.
That seems faster. And so you said the order of the way that they're in, it starts at the V.
Yeah.
And comes this way.
Uh-huh.
And then wraps around that way.
And jumps across to the other end of and comes back into the middle.
Okay.
Just like in Washington, D.C., people come here and leave things at the wall.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because there are some, what I would have said were some strange things to leave behind, but I think you told me one time those all mean things.
Well, it means different things to different people. I didn't know about the tradition when I was in Vietnam, and I heard about it when they built the wall in Washington. And we didn't really expect people to do it here. Well, we suspected they would, but we didn't anticipate the turnout we would get. But this is the newest addition to the area, for sure. I didn't know about the dogs. I didn't realize that dogs were used in the Vietnam War. I knew about dogs being used in military service. And they could find bombs and booby traps and things for us, and they formed a very close bond with their trainer. The dog and the man were basically inseparable. Our first artifact was the Soldier's Cross, and it turns out the Soldier's Cross dates back to at least the Civil War, if not before that.
Huh.
But when soldiers fell in combat, it was something erected depending on what they had at the time, but you have a pair of boots and a rifle and a helmet, and that's a traditional thing. This is a Vietnam Soldier's Cross. Civil War Soldier's Cross looked a little different, but the same concept. Well, here we go with garden number 4, the reflection garden. It's a typical traditional big stone with the name on it. This was 2 different Eagle Scouts projects that was done in here. And on the far side, you can see a giant, ugly helicopter called an H-34. And that particular helicopter was in President Eisenhower's fleet during the late 50s. Now, we cannot prove that President Eisenhower actually got in that helicopter, but it was there and he was there. The odds are good that he got in at some time or another. So I'd like to brag about that. And when we finally got this built, I had another Eagle Scout come along, wanting something to do, and I asked him if he could build a bridge down here across this. Now, it makes sense to you now, but it wasn't. The helicopter just got here a couple of years ago, and I've had the bridge for 10 years. And they said, why do you want a bridge there? Because we're going to put something big in that space. We knew that we didn't have any big things. I said, we got to find a big thing. We had looked at, we almost had a big statue donated to us. We almost had this. Somebody thought of something. And eventually this big helicopter showed up and we put it right where I had reserved space for it. Well, this would be garden number 5, I think, the Semper Fi garden. And they don't have a big rock in their garden. Well, they have a kind of a big rock, but the Marines, you might know the Semper Fi garden would be the garden for the Marines, and they put the Marine emblem. This is called an Amtrac, amphibious track vehicle, and it's exactly like the ones that were used in Vietnam. This one came from the Pate Museum out near Granbury. When they shut down the Pate Museum, they wanted to get rid of this, and we didn't have anything for the Marines, so I said, yes, we want that.
Yeah, we'll take it.
This is a nice little boat that we collected for the Navy Garden. It's actually called the Captain's Gig. People always ask me what that means. Well, everybody knows about the captain's car, and cars don't run in the water, so this is the captain's water car. It's called a gig, a little boat. And you probably can't, I don't know that the camera will be able to see it, but down at the far end of the property, there's a admiral's barge.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I don't know why they call it a barge. That's a little bit insulting in my mind, but that's what it's called. And it's a lot bigger than this. Because an admiral is a lot higher ranked than.
Yeah.
This is probably this is operated by a captain. This was attached to a destroyer in its real life, and a captain is going to command a destroyer, but bigger boats are commanded by admirals. And that gets us down to the new building.
All right. Well, Jim, thank you so much for showing us around the gardens and telling us the stories. I've chatted with you lots of times and still never get to hear all the stories. So it's been really great. And we're finishing up here in front of the building. I'm so excited to see that finished. We have to come back and do a tour just of that one. That one's going to be great.
Yeah.
So if you love military history, the National Vietnam War Museum really should be on your list. And speaking of lists, we have a whole Mineral Wells military history self-guided tour that you can take with a lot of stops and a lot of history on it. So if you want to take that tour yourself, we will add the link to that so that you can download it. We'll put that in the description of the video. But other than that, Jim, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Come again.
Yeah, absolutely.